Hello and thanks for downloading the Richard and Judy Book Club podcast, exclusive to WHSmith, where we have another great book and a fascinating author for you to get to know.
WHSmith and Richard and Judy. What a team! And the podcast is the best way to meet the authors who write the books you love to read.
Now, this book has already been a massive success in hardback, and if you haven't already read it, you probably will have heard of it. And soon, it's going to be hitting the cinemas as a big, blockbusting film.
With Emily Blunt. It's a thriller, a rattling good read with a rather sad, alcoholic central character taking you through the events as she remembers or tries to remember them.
Paula Hawkins, The Girl on the Train.
Someone in the seat behind me gives a sigh of helpless irritation. The 8:04 slow train from Ashbury to Euston can test the patience of the most seasoned commuter. The journey is supposed to take 54 minutes, but it rarely does. This section of the track is ancient, decrepit, beset with signalling problems and never-ending engineering works. The train crawls along. It judders past warehouses and water towers, bridges and sheds, past modest Victorian houses, their backs turned squarely to the track. My head leaning against the carriage window, I watch these houses roll past me like a tracking shot in a film. I see them as others do not. Even their owners probably don't see them from this perspective. Twice a day I am offered a view into other lives just for a moment. There's something comforting about the sight of strangers safe at home. Someone's phone is ringing, an incongruously joyful and upbeat song. They're slow to answer, it jingles on and on around me. I can feel my fellow commuters shift in their seats, rustle their papers, tap at their computers. The train lurches and sways around the bend, slowing as it approaches a red signal. I try not to look up. I try to read the free newspaper I was handed on my way into the station, but the words blur in front of my eyes. Nothing holds my interest. In my head, I can still see that little pile of clothes lying at the edge of the track, abandoned.
Well, welcome to the Richard and Judy Summer Book Club. And what better way to start than with an existing, well, I'd say bestseller, but that's a kind of understatement, utter blockbuster. The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. Now, this, if you don't know this story, I'll just bear with me for 30 seconds, and if you do know, bear with me for 30 seconds. This ingenious amnesia thriller is already a massive bestseller. Rachel takes the same train across London every day for work. On each journey, it stops outside the same house, and Rachel becomes obsessed with the couple who live in it, for reasons we'll explain. One day, she thinks she's witnessed a betrayal. But miserable Rachel is frequently totally drunk due to her failed marriage, and she often loses the plot along with her memory. Her complex emotions lead her on a dangerous quest, ending in a blood-soaked, gruesome murder. It's an absolutely terrific read, and Paula's here now. Did you know when you wrote The End, as opposed to the end of draft 1 or the end of draft 2, did you know when you wrote The End that this was going to be the extraordinary sort of J.K. Rowling scale novelistic success that it is?
No, I did not. I was optimistic. I felt good about it. I felt good about that I captured Rachel's voice in the way that I wanted to. But no, I could never have dreamed that this kind of thing was going to happen to me. So
when did you realise? What was the phone call you got from your publishers where you all collectively thought, hello, this thing's got into orbit?
I think it wasn't sort of one, it was the first couple of weeks. It came out in the UK and the US at the same time, and I think it went to number 1 in both countries in the second week. And then it was like, whoa, because I was actually more shocked by the American thing. I didn't think I was an unknown British author writing a book about a depressed alcoholic. It didn't have, number 1 in the US written all over it. So yeah, but I think that's when I realised it was something other. But even so, it just built and built and built and became...
Because it is an incredibly complex book. It's the twists and the turns, not helped by the fact that poor old Rachel drinks so much that she keeps losing her memory. So you are completely, you don't know quite who to believe. You don't know when she's recalling things properly or when she's not. I love the idea of the train. I mean, do you like Hitchcock?
I do, yes, very much.
Rear Window. It's Rear Window, isn't it?
There's a lot of Rear Window.
The guy in Rear Window, sort of James Stewart, is it? Yeah. He sort of sits there because he's had an accident and he's stuck in front of this window in his flat, and he becomes obsessed with what's going on in the apartment opposite his, so you can see. And that's very kind of like what happens to Rachel on the train. Now, Rachel's, just to get to the story, and I'm sure a lot of people know it, but just to get to the story a bit more, Rachel has she's sort of gone a bit doolally, if you like, as she started drinking so much because her marriage has broken up.
Yes.
And her husband has not treated her very well, really, has he? Because she couldn't conceive, could she?
Yes. Well, I think the thing with Rachel is she's in this marriage. She's married to someone she loves very much. She wants to very much have a baby, and she can't. And she's someone who already likes a drink. You know, perhaps she's already sort of erring on the side of too much. And then she becomes depressed because she can't conceive, and she starts to drink. And her husband is perhaps not as sympathetic as he might be. And it's difficult to tell as you're reading the book whether, you know, the depression caused the drinking or the drinking caused the depression, or it's just one thing feeding into another. Yeah. But eventually her husband can't, you know, she's apparently a nightmare to live with, and her husband starts having an affair. And so when we meet Rachel in the book, the relationship is actually broken up, and he's moved on to a new woman who have a baby, which makes her, you know, which is all the more painful for Rachel. Right,
and she is. We find out fairly early on in the book. I don't think this is any kind of spoiler, but although she still gets that train every day, she's only pretending to go to work because actually she's lost her job because of drinking.
Because of her drink problem. Yes, and so she passes the house that she used to live in, and one of her sort of tricks to try and stop her from looking at this house is to look at another house where she witnesses this couple, and to her they seem golden and, you know, marvellous. She idolises them the way you can when you just see people who you don't know. You know, you can imagine what their lives are like, and you see them as perfect.
Especially if you're miserable yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, going through a really bad time.
She sees this perfect couple, and then one day she witnesses something that really shocks her. And then the female half of this couple goes missing, and she believes that she now holds the key to everything because of what she's seen.
How important do you think is a title to the success of a novel? Because what I like about The Girl on the Train as a title is it's sort of so universally accessible. I can just think of generations of women, young women, middle-aged women, women heading for retirement, who spent their careers sitting on a train going to and from work.
Drinking gin.
Possibly drinking gin as well. But therefore being able to sort of almost put themselves into her position. What do you think?
I think a good title is a great hook, but also just having that. I think the universality of this story is that thing of everyone has done this, has sat on the train, has looked out, and has been able to see into a house and thought, oh, you know, I don't know what you might think, but everybody likes doing that. Everybody likes getting a glimpse into other people's lives. And that's, I think, the thing that draws you in. So many people said to me when I was talking to them about, oh gosh, yeah, I do that all the time. I'm always looking into people's houses when I'm going past.
But the key here is, this is what's so clever about it, is that can happen sort of at random on a train journey. For some reason the train stops because there's a problem with the points just that one day, and then it never stops there again, or doesn't for another few months. But the train stops here every day at this point. So it's like a series of updated trailers into these people's lives.
And yes, a lot of it, as we come to discover, is not so much what Rachel sees, but what Rachel wants to see, or what Rachel conjures up in her head. Because after all, she's quite a long way away, but she's conjuring up this perfect life that is sort of she uses to comfort herself, which is why when suddenly she sees this act of betrayal, she imagines it's so painful for her, even though she doesn't actually know these people.
Now, with a huge first success comes what an awful lot of writers will share amongst themselves and generally. Second book, psychosis. How do you top that? Now, how do you top a book with sales and critical acclaim like this at a film with Emily Blunt and all the rest of it, forthcoming film? The pressure on you must be phenomenal.
I don't think you can think about topping things. At the moment, all I can think about is getting to the end of this book that I'm writing. I have to write the best book I can, and that's all I can do. I have to cut out as much as I can, all the noise. And at the moment, I'm at that point that I'm still writing and I'm still working on it, so it's not too terrifying.
How many words have you done?
How many words?
Yeah.
I'm around 80 something.
Oh,
I'm near the end. I'm near
yeah.
the end. I'm near the end, but there'll still be lots of work to do. I think this point, when it's still in your control, it's less frightening. It's once it's actually the publishers have it and it's good.
Yes.
Then it becomes terrifying because then it's out there. And
Nothing you can
there's
do. Nothing you can do. You
When
can't spin it.
When you were writing The Girl on the Train, as I said, it's complex. It is. I mean, the plot is complex. Did you map it all out beforehand, or did you just kind of go with the flow? And
No, I planned it, not in meticulous detail, but I had to know where it was going to end up, otherwise I wouldn't know how to
You had an
get
arc.
there. I had an arc, yes, I did. And I had some other twists, and I sort of thought, well, at this point we're going to need to know another piece of information at that point. So, but there were things that developed as it went along, and there were, at the most, I suppose, glaring example was that at the beginning, this book has 3 narrators, but at the beginning I'd only planned on having 2. I hadn't planned on having Anna's voice, so that came in later on. But yes, so I'd planned it, the architecture of it, but I hadn't completely furnished everything yet.
And I would imagine that your voice and the one you're about to complete will be recognisable from the first one. But in terms of what it is it completely different in terms of a story, a novel?
Yes, it is completely different. I mean, well, it's a psychological thriller. Again, there is murder and suspicion and that sort of thing. And again, actually, it deals a lot with women's relationships to each other. But the story is also completely different.
And just for everyone listening who would really like to write and perhaps are trying to write as we speak now, just from the perspective of a glorious success, has it made you really, 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 really happy?
Yes, there are moments of enormous happiness and moments of enormous, yes, absolutely, and moments of fear and moments of sitting around crying, and it's extreme. I can certainly say that.
And has it made you really, 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 really rich?
Well, I'm a lot better off than I was.
And so you should be. Paula Hawkins, author of The Girl on the Train. It's a delight to have you first on the list of the Richard and Judy Book Club Summer List. There are 8 titles in total, and if you buy them from our partner in this enterprise, WHSmith, you will find exclusively at the back of each book extra added material, which you won't get if you buy this excellent book anywhere else.
Paula, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You.
That was great.
I'm quite relaxed about letting go of my work, I think. Once I'm done with it, I'm done with it. I don't really want to keep going back to it. And I was, yes, keen to move on to the next thing. So, I don't find myself clinging on to the characters too much. Once I've got to the end of the book, for me, they're kind of gone now. My writing routine is fairly boring, actually. I used to be a freelance journalist, so I'm quite used to just getting up in the morning, sitting at my desk and writing a fairly normal working day. You become disciplined from the journalism, and then that sort of becomes ingrained in you. And although you don't necessarily have short deadlines, I suppose I tend to set myself short deadlines. So, okay, I will do 1,500 words today, or I will get to the end of chapter X by the end of this week. I do get stuck. I get stuck all the time. I find that either I just have to step away from it and leave it for a bit, or sometimes I'll talk to someone else, like an agent or an editor, and say, I've got myself into trouble here. But yeah, and sometimes you've just got to face the fact that it's going to be a tricky bit and you're going to have to just push through it. I was always fond of creative writing as a child, and I had sort of started a lot of novels in my 20s. I had lots of ideas and I used to start writing things, and I never showed them to anyone and they never went anywhere. Because I'm quite a practical person, I never thought of novelist as sort of a career path. Journalism seemed more practical. So I have always wanted to, but it was more of a daydream than a plan. Kate Atkinson is my favourite novelist of the moment. I think she's brilliant. Her newest book is God in Ruins, which I think is a work of genius, but I would say to everyone, read Life After Life first and then read God in Ruins, because although you can read them, they are independent novels. I think as a piece they are perfect.
I suspect some listeners will be wondering why we chose this runaway bestseller for the book club. Well,
it's a fantastically complex and well-written book. At the centre of the plot is this girl, Rachel, who is sad, overweight, depressed because her marriage is broken up. The reason her marriage is broken up is because she wanted to have a baby. She couldn't get pregnant, and her husband eventually left her for somebody else who's already now had a baby. So Rachel, the central character, is about as depressed as you can get, and to deal with it, she drinks. And she drinks especially on the train when she's going to work and coming back from work.
I think also the reason that we chose this book is the same as everyone on the list and all the lists. It's just a damn good read. And that's, as people who are familiar with the book club know now, that's our central criteria. It doesn't frankly matter if it's a debut writer that no one's ever heard of before, or whether it's something like this, which is a phenomenon. The success of this book is extraordinary, as we discuss with the author. It's just a very, very, very good contemporary story, with a winning title as well. I mean, titles are important, and it basically, the title, The Girl on the Train, plugs the readers in, particularly I think female readers, to the fact that this has a kind of universality about it. You know, the drinking, the train journey every day, being laid off, pretending that you haven't been laid off. It's a very cleverly written book.
Yeah, but I mean, at basic level, it's also a murder story. It's a thriller. And Rachel, the girl who's been sort of been through this divorce and is a bit of a sad sack because of it, is absolutely fascinated by her ex-husband's new life with his new wife and baby daughter, and by a couple who live a few doors down. Because Rachel's train stops in the same place every day due to certain sort of signal stuff. And she looks out at these houses where she used to live with her ex-husband, and a few doors down, this new glamorous-looking couple seem to be having a wonderful life. She fantasises about it, and then one day she sees something really odd happening, and she gets involved in a very, very gruesome scenario.
So well done, Paula Hawkins, and can I borrow a tenner, please?
Check out the latest in the Richard and Judy Book Club, in-store and online at WHSmith.co.uk.
Our next author has been described as the best thriller writer alive.
It's still very rewarding and gratifying to walk into a bookstore and see my books there, because I'll never forget the frustration 30 years ago of trying to write my first novel and walking into bookstores and seeing, a huge wall of 50 new releases from publishers in New York and London, and I would think to myself, who wants to hear from me? There's no hope for me.
Join us and John Grisham next time on the Richard and Judy Book Club podcast, exclusive to WHSmith.